Hello, my name's Maura. They told me it was just a family hike, a chance to reconnect. But by the time we reached the edge of that cliff, I realized they weren't trying to fix things. They were trying to end them. My own mother, my brother, my father. They pushed me and my 5-year-old daughter off a mountain and smiled as they walked away. They thought there were no witnesses. But what if I told you? Someone's drone caught it all. And what if I told you that wasn't even the worst part? Would you want to know what happened next? I used to think quiet meant safe. Our street in Missoula looked like the kind of place you'd find on a jigsaw puzzle. Snow melting off porches, neighbors waving from behind their windshields, kids' bikes left tipped on lawns. From the outside, everything about my life appeared ordinary. I had a job at the clinic, a 5-year-old daughter who worshipped her uncle, and aging parents next door who made the best lemon bars in town. But the day Tobias showed up with paperwork and Thai takeout, I should have known better. I was just getting over the flu, still weak, coughing into my sleeve as I opened the door. Tobias grinned, holding a bag of food in one hand and a manila envelope in the other. Thought you could use dinner and a little help sorting through your health stuff. You've got that insurance renewal coming up, right? I nodded, grateful. I trusted him. After all, he'd been around more lately, taking Janie for walks, fixing things around the house. He talked a lot about stepping up for us, like he was some stand-in guardian. While I ate on the couch, he sat across from me at the table, smoothing out forms and clicking his pen. This one's just standard, authorization in case anything happens. You know how crazy hospitals are. You don't want Sharon or Frank making the wrong call if something goes south. He chuckled like it was a joke. I didn't even blink. I signed it. And that, right there, was the moment I lost everything. The week after, we had dinner with my parents like we always did on Sundays. Janie laughed louder than I'd heard in days, playing her animal guessing game with Tobias. My mom, Sharon, was pouring wine, humming some old country tune. My dad, Frank, talked politics like always, nodding as if Tobias's half-baked opinions deserved a podium. I was watching it all happen like I wasn't part of it. Tobias leaned over Janie and whispered something. She giggled, then turned to me and said, "Uncle Toby says when I grow up, he'll protect me just like you do." She beamed at me like it was sweet. I forced a smile. Something about it didn't land right. Later that night, when I tucked her in, she looked at me with her wide, sleepy eyes and asked, "Mommy, do people ever just disappear forever?" I froze. I wanted to tell her no. I wanted to say people don't vanish just because they become inconvenient. But I couldn't lie. Not after the way Tobias had looked at me when I signed that form. Like he'd won something I hadn't even known we were playing for. The morning after that question from Janie, I couldn't shake the chill. It was the kind of sentence that burrowed into your mind and stayed there, like smoke clinging to curtains long after the fire's out. I was in my mother's kitchen sipping bitter coffee. Sharon sat across from me in her usual floral robe, flipping through a newspaper she didn't really read. I was mid-sip when she looked up and said it, so casually I almost missed the meaning. "If anything ever happened to you, I would raise Janie myself. I've already spoken with a lawyer." I didn't say a word at first. My heart didn't even race. It just stopped. She folded the paper neatly and set it aside like we were discussing the weather. "It's just a precaution," she added. "You've seemed overwhelmed. Between work, the flu, single parenting, Maura, it's showing." I didn't answer. I just stared at her, trying to figure out what she wasn't saying. Before I could speak, she slid a thick folder across the table. "Family Custody Safeguard." It read in bold letters. Inside, court pamphlets, child wellness guides, and printed blog posts about maternal burnout. "This is for Janie's future," she said. "You can't pour from an empty cup. Maybe it's time to consider letting someone help, someone stable." That word, stable, it wasn't an offer. It was a judgment wrapped in sugar. I didn't take the folder. I left it there and drove straight home. That night, something tugged at me. I opened my calendar on the fridge, the same one I'd used for years, and found an appointment scribbled in on Friday. Dr. Graves, mental health check-in. I hadn't written it. I called the number listed. Receptionist answered. "Yes, Maura Wilson, 3:30 p.m. with Dr. Pauline Graves. booked by Sharon Carter for her daughter's mental evaluation. We've confirmed through the emergency contact. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from fury. Dr. Graves. That name rang a bell. She used to work at the same school as Mom, counselor turned therapist. I remembered her from PTA meetings. Tight smile, judgmental eyes. I stormed back to my parents' place. Sharon was alone in the living room folding laundry, humming again. What is this? I held up my phone. You're setting me up? She barely blinked. Don't be dramatic. You need help. People are starting to notice. Janie deserves someone reliable. I'm her mother. Then act like one, she snapped, her voice like ice cracking under weight. You've been slipping, Maura. I'm just trying to protect my granddaughter. It hit me then, not concern, not fear. This was strategy. She wanted Janie, and she was building her case to take her. The following Wednesday started like any other, until I nearly didn't make it to the intersection by 6th and Cedar. Janie and I were running late for school. She was humming something from her tablet in the back seat, and I was trying to stay focused through the exhaustion still clinging to me like damp clothes. As we approached the light, I tapped the brake. Nothing. My foot went to the floor. The car kept gliding forward. I yanked the wheel hard right and missed a blue pickup by inches. Janie screamed, tires screeched, horns blared. Somehow we didn't hit anything. I pulled off to the side, heart thudding against my ribs like it wanted out. Janie clung to her seatbelt, eyes wide. You okay? I asked, voice tighter than it should have been. She nodded slowly. Why didn't the car stop? Good question. After I dropped her off, still shaken, still faking calm, I drove straight to a small auto shop just off Higgins Avenue. The place was quiet, run down, but the guy inside looked honest. Grease-stained flannel, kind eyes, slow to speak. He took one look under the car and gave me a strange glance. Then he rolled back under, stayed there longer this time. When he finally stood, he wiped his hands and said, Ma'am, this didn't just happen. Someone's cut into your brake lines. Sloppy patch job. Looked intentional. I stared at him. Are you sure? He nodded. It wasn't wear and tear. I don't want to make assumptions, but this ain't no accident. I left there trembling. I didn't tell Janie. I couldn't. But inside, something snapped into place, tight and cold. They weren't just setting me up as unstable. They wanted me gone. Silently, conveniently. That night, after Janie fell asleep watching cartoons on the couch, I pulled out my old insurance paperwork. I started comparing names, dates, account references. Then I saw it. The primary beneficiary had been updated, not to a person, but to a holding account under TF Holdings. The signature? A notary I remembered from Dennis's old firm, my ex-husband. The same man who once swore he wanted nothing to do with Carter family drama. I called him. He picked up on the second ring. Dennis. There was a pause, then a low sigh. I don't want any part of this, Maura. Part of what? Click. He hung up. And that was enough. Whoever was behind this, Tobias, my mother, maybe even Dennis, they were moving fast, coordinated, but they were also getting reckless. They'd underestimated me. 2 days later, Sharon called and invited us for dinner like nothing had ever happened. Her tone was syrupy sweet, and she even offered to make Janie's favorite, peach cobbler. I could have said no, I should have, but something told me to go, see them, watch them, and I was right to. The house smelled like cinnamon and manipulation. Tobias was already there when we arrived, setting the table like he belonged in a Norman Rockwell painting. Frank greeted me with a bear hug and a beer I didn't ask for. Everyone was too cheerful. Sharon asked about my work, Tobias joked with Janie. Frank kept the conversation light, but I watched them, really watched them, and it felt like a performance, like they'd rehearsed every word. Halfway through dessert, Tobias leaned back, all casual charm. We've been thinking. It's been a rough season. Maybe a little nature would do us all good. There's a new hiking trail out past Bitterroot. Quiet, gorgeous, perfect for a weekend reset. Sharon nodded, spoon-tapping her bowl. It'd be good for Janie, too. You've been so wound up lately, sweetie. Nature heals. I smiled with my teeth. Sounds peaceful. But every cell in my body screamed. Back home, Janie was brushing her teeth when I sat on the bed and asked her, "What do you think about Uncle Toby's hike idea?" She rinsed and came over, toweling her face. "It sounds fun, but Mommy?" "Yes, baby?" "When you were sick, Uncle Toby told me we'd be rich when you weren't around. He said we could move somewhere big and sunny, like Florida." My mouth dried. "He said that?" "Yeah. I think he was kidding, though. Right?" I pulled her in close, held her tight, and kissed the top of her head. "Of course," I said. But I didn't believe a word of it. They were planning something. This wasn't a hike, it was a setup with a pretty view. That night I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open and a notepad beside me. I looked up trail maps, marked cell signal dead zones, reviewed weather reports. I texted a friend in Helena just to say, "If anything weird happens this weekend, call the police." Then I packed a flashlight, phone charger, backup battery, and an emergency whistle in my own day pack. If they were planning a trap, they had no idea I'd already stepped around it. Saturday came gray and windless. The sky hung low, like it knew something I didn't. I dressed Janie in layers, packed snacks, water, a first aid kit, and slid a whistle into my coat pocket. I zipped my phone into an inside pouch after double-checking the battery. When we pulled into the trailhead parking lot, Sharon waved from beside their car. She looked like she was going to a picnic, not a hike. Pearls and lipstick, no gear. Tobias wore hiking boots that looked brand new, no mud, no scuff. Frank had a walking stick, but no water bottle. "Ready to breathe some fresh mountain air?" Tobias grinned. I gave him a tight nod. Always good to be outside. We walked single file along the path, pine needles soft beneath our boots. Janie darted ahead, her laugh echoing, but I couldn't enjoy it. I kept scanning, left, right, behind. Sharon kept humming. Tobias stayed close, too close. Halfway up the ridge, Tobias gestured to a bluff that overlooked the lake. "Let's take a break. The view's amazing." Frank led Janie by the hand toward the edge. "Look at that water, sweetheart. Isn't it beautiful?" "No," I said under my breath. "Don't go closer." But my voice didn't carry. Tobias stepped beside me and rested a hand on my back. "You okay?" I didn't answer. "Come on," he coaxed. "Just a few more steps." I turned to him, met his eyes, and said clearly, "If you do this, there's no coming back." His smile didn't fade. "I'm counting on that." Then it happened. His hand pushed hard between my shoulder blades. The world tilted. My body twisted. I screamed Janie's name. I reached for her. She was too close to the edge. We went over together. Branches clawed at my coat. Rocks tore at my back. I wrapped myself around her the only way I knew how. The air was gone. Just sound, rushing, snapping, crashing. Then silence. I opened my eyes. Pain like lightning. Blood in my mouth. My leg wouldn't move. And then her voice, shaky, soft. "Mom, don't move. If we're still, they might think we're gone." I blinked at her, my brave little girl. Above, voices. Tobias. "They're not moving." Sharon. "Let's go." Their footsteps faded. I waited until the last branch snapped under their boots. The forest swallowed their retreating voices. Janie clung to me, breath quick and shallow. "We're alive," I whispered, the words tasting like blood. "We're still here." With one arm cradling her and the other shattered uselessly, I shifted my weight. My right leg sent a shockwave of pain so sharp I nearly blacked out. I bit my cheek hard enough to taste iron, using the pain to anchor me. We moved like shadows, slow, deliberate, quiet. Janie found a fallen branch to help me crawl. Her hands trembled, but her voice never cracked. "There's a path below, Mom. I think I saw it when we fell." She led. I followed. It took hours. I don't know how many. Time blurred into pine needles, stones, and sweat. I kept my eyes on her sneakers, telling myself if she kept walking, I could too. My girl was saving me as much as I was trying to protect her. Right before sunrise, a flashlight beam cut through the trees. A couple hiking early. Just chance or fate. I still don't know. "Oh my God!" the woman gasped, dropping her bag. "Are you okay?" "No," I rasped. "We were pushed. Call an ambulance. Tell them. This wasn't an accident." The paramedics met us on the access road. I was in and out of consciousness, but I remember the straps on the stretcher, Janie's fingers in mine, and the warm hand of a first responder brushing hair from my face. "You're safe now, ma'am," someone said. Safe? Not yet, but alive. At the hospital, they worked quickly. Dislocated shoulder, compound fracture in the leg, concussion, dozens of bruises. Janie? Scrapes, mild shock. Otherwise fine. My body had done what it needed to do. Later that night, a detective came into my room. Middle-aged, calm eyes. Nameplate said, "Detective Harold Brown." "I need to ask you some questions, Mrs. Wilson. But before we start, you should see this." He held out a phone. Video playing. From a distance, shaky footage from a fly cam. A group on a cliff. Zooms in. Tobias. His hand on my back. The shove. My body vanishing over the edge. It felt surreal watching my own murder attempt, filmed like some tourist horror reel. I exhaled slowly, my anger quiet now, controlled. "I'll testify," I said. "I want all of them arrested, every last one." 2 weeks passed. The morning of the trial, Missoula County Courthouse was swarmed with reporters. I moved slowly through the main doors on crutches, the sound of camera shutters clicking like insects in my ears. Janie stayed with a counselor outside the courtroom. I didn't want her to see what came next. Inside, Sharon sat beside Frank and Tobias in the defendant box. Her hair curled, her blouse perfectly ironed, like she was attending a Sunday brunch. Frank's face was stone. Tobias looked smug, but Dennis's seat was empty. His attorney leaned toward the judge. "Mr. Wilson is currently out of state on business." Coward. I sat down across from them, steady despite the cast on my leg and sling across my shoulder. I didn't flinch. The prosecution began strong, laying out the timeline, the drone footage, the beneficiary changes. But the defense had tricks, just like Sharon always did. They called Dr. Pauline Graves to the stand. "She exhibited signs of paranoia," she said smoothly. "Struggled with boundaries. I had concerns for the child's welfare." It was all rehearsed. Lies wrapped in credentials. Then came the notebook, one I'd never seen, allegedly pulled from my locker at the clinic. Phrases highlighted, "I feel like they're watching me." "Sometimes I want to disappear." Fabricated, but it was enough to cast doubt, until Janie's video played. Uncle Toby pushed her, Mommy screamed, Grandpa told me to be quiet. My baby, clear as daylight. Then the drone footage lit up the courtroom. Gasps echoed. The prosecutor revealed the insurance transfer. Dennis's name, his signature. The judge leaned forward. "These are not coincidences." Sharon wouldn't look at me. Tobias tapped his foot. Frank just slumped. I took the stand last. "My family didn't just try to kill me. They wanted to erase me. Make it look like I was unfit, paranoid, unstable, until I was gone. They wanted the money, the silence, the absence." I turned toward Sharon. "And the worst part? You thought being my mother made you untouchable." Silence. No verdict yet. But something had cracked. Publicly, irreversibly. The next morning, the courtroom was colder. Not the temperature, just the air. Tighter, more alert. The crowd thinner, but every seat held a stare. No more whispers, just silence, like everyone finally understood what this was. War in plain clothes. I stepped into the box again, no crutches this time. Just me, standing on one good leg, one battered soul. I adjusted the mic and met the jury's eyes, each of them waiting. "I was never supposed to be here," I began. "They didn't plan for survival, they planned for silence." I walked them through everything, again, but this time with steel in my voice. The insurance forms Tobias tricked me into signing, the break lines, sliced and sealed, Sharon's fake therapist appointment, the notes I never wrote, the hike I never wanted. "And my daughter," I said, turning toward them. "She told me, Uncle Toby said we'd be rich when you're not around." A few jurors visibly flinched. They called it concern. Protection. I call it premeditated betrayal. The prosecutor stood next, laying out a meticulous timeline. Paperwork, money transfers, call logs, drone footage, testimony from the emergency responders. The judge leaned forward, voice firm. "This goes far beyond attempted murder. This is a family conspiracy for financial gain, built on deception and psychological warfare." An audible crack in the room. Sharon snapped. "She's lying!" she shouted. "This is all twisted!" The judge banged the gavel. "Sit down, Mrs. Carter." I didn't look at her. I looked at Janie, sitting quietly with a court advocate in the back. She caught my eyes and gave me the smallest smile, steady, brave, the way I'd prayed she'd never have to be. I turned back to the court. They didn't just want me gone. They wanted to erase who I was and rewrite Janie's life to suit their story. But that ends today. And then I said it. Clear, final. This will never define her, not if I still breathe. The gavel fell a week later. Tobias, 25 years, no parole for the first 15. Sharon and Frank, 15 years each for conspiracy and endangerment. Dennis, finally dragged from hiding, was booked for fraud and obstruction. The courtroom emptied, but I didn't stay to give a statement. When the reporters pushed forward, I simply said, "Justice isn't for show," and walked past the cameras. Let them write whatever they wanted. I had nothing left to prove. 3 months later, Janie and I were unpacking boxes in a cabin tucked high in the Colorado hills. Pine framed the windows. Silence here meant peace, not danger. We stayed at a guest house run by Martha, a no-nonsense widow who ran things with a warm laugh and zero tolerance for pity. She'd been a friend of Jennifer, the nurse who'd helped me through recovery. Word had traveled. Kind people still existed. I picked up part-time shifts at a rural clinic 2 towns over. Quiet work, steady patience. My body was healing slower than my heart, but healing nonetheless. Janie started school again. She was quiet at first, but then one afternoon she came home holding a drawing. A lake, a cliff, a woman and a little girl holding hands, a sun rising in the background. David, the principal, stopped by that evening to check in. We talked on the porch. He complimented her courage, said something about her being a leader in the making. We drank chamomile tea in silence for a while, watching the sun fade behind the trees. Inside, I watched Janie sketch more. No monsters, no dark clouds, just wildflowers and sunlight, and maybe freedom. "She's not afraid of cliffs anymore," I said, almost to myself, and I wasn't either. We'd been pushed, broken, left to disappear. But we didn't. We rose where they thought we'd end. Maybe you're watching this with a lump in your throat, wondering how a family could turn into something so cold, so calculating. I used to wonder that too. But here's what I've learned. Surviving betrayal doesn't mean you're weak. It means you chose to keep living when others chose to lie, hurt, and abandon. And choosing to live, to heal, is the bravest thing we can do. I don't tell my story for pity. I tell it because somewhere, someone else is being gaslit by the very people who should be protecting them. Maybe that someone is you, or maybe it's someone you love. Don't ignore the gut feeling. Don't wait for proof to value your pain, and most importantly, don't let them write the ending for you. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to survive out loud. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever felt like someone tried to silence your truth? Or maybe you've had to rebuild after family hurt you in ways no one talks about? Tell me in the comments. Your story matters too. And if this video touched something deep in you, drop a 1 in the comments, or tell me what state you're watching from. I'd love to know where this message reaches. And, hey, if you didn't like the video, I'd still like to hear why. We're all here learning, growing, surviving together. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more real stories that don't flinch from the truth, but push through it. Because the next one might be yours. See you soon. Stay brave.
I was over the moon, having just married the love of my life. But one day, a package arrived for my mother-in-law. Excitedly, I opened it, only to find a surprise of another kind. It sent my relationship with my husband spiraling into a nightmare. But I'll be damned if I let her win. I refuse to let things go her way. My name is Jessica. I married my husband David just 6 months ago. We're still newlyweds, planning to make many happy memories together. But then something unimaginable happened. It started a month after our wedding. I was cleaning the house, now a full-time homemaker, when the doorbell rang. A package for me. The sender, my mother-in-law. A package from my mother-in-law? I wonder what it is, I thought. I had received no notice of a package being sent, and David hadn't mentioned anything either. Curious, I opened the box. Inside, I found clothes, not exactly fashionable and very well worn. What? What are these? Old clothes. I was flabbergasted by the array of second-hand clothes, some even with holes in them. There were clothes that must have been fashionable once but now were just garish. Just then, the phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. "Oh, Jessica dear, did you get my gift?" No. What part of that is a gift? They're clearly old clothes, and they're hideous. How can anyone possibly see that as a gift? As I stood bewildered by this unexpected situation, my mother-in-law started explaining casually. "You see, those clothes are ones I used to wear a long time ago. I found them when I was tidying up my closet." But mother-in-law, some of them have holes in them." "Don't worry, dear. I included some new ones I bought recently. Please try them on." Despite my confusion, my mother-in-law chattered away cheerfully. Was this harassment or was it really just kindness? Honestly, I couldn't figure out my mother-in-law's true intentions. My husband David came home from work and immediately noticed the mountain of old clothes. "Did Mom just give you a gift? That's nice." It was more like she had given them away rather than given them. Even so, if it was really out of kindness from my mother-in-law, I didn't want to seem ungrateful, so I did mention the holes or the poor taste to David. A month later, another package arrived from my mother-in-law. As expected, it was filled entirely with second-hand clothes in an amount incomparable to the last time. Plus, the designs were even worse than before. Who would wear these? I felt bad for my mother-in-law, but this was nothing short of an unwelcome favor. They were just crowding my closet. I should give them away or sell them at a flea market. As I was thinking this, the phone rang again. It was my mother-in-law. "Oh, Jessica, did the clothes arrive?" I gathered some really special pieces this time. My mother-in-law seemed overly cheerful. Even so, it would be problematic if she kept sending them regularly. "They're old and not to my taste. Mother-in-law, I appreciate your sentiment, but I don't usually wear such flashy clothes." When I indirectly refused, she suddenly got angry. Maybe my words had rubbed her the wrong way. "Excuse me, Jessica. What kind of things are you saying about the clothes I went out of my way to send?" The correct response is thank you. No, I appreciate the thought, but just wear them, Jessica. Sending you all those clothes will surely save you some money, won't it? The next time you come over, make sure you're wearing the stuff I've given you, okay? My mother-in-law gave me a one-sided command and then hung up the phone. I sighed. I made her angry. What was more, I never knew that she was the type of person to force her opinions on others so vehemently. That night, I decided to gather up my courage and talk to my husband about it. "David, do you have a minute?" "Wait, you got more presents from my mom." "Well, that's what I wanted to talk about." David was still under the impression that I was being sent presents I would enjoy. When I explained the situation, his eyes widened. "Second-hand clothes." "Yes, second-hand clothes, and they're not my style at all. I can't possibly wear the clothes your mom sent." I tried to gently refuse over the phone, and she got really upset. "Can you talk to her?" David stayed silent for a while. I was troubled because of the stuff his mom had sent. Surely he'd come up with a good solution to smooth things over between me and his mother. "I'll call Mom." David walked out onto the balcony and took out his smartphone. I hoped he would be able to resolve this situation over the phone with his mom. But when he came back from his call, he said something outrageous. "Mom told me she was just trying to do something nice by sending you clothes. You make it sound like it's a nuisance. You should be more grateful." I was baffled at David's words. "Hold on a minute. I told you, right? I can't wear those clothes. They're not my style at all. Mom said it's clothes she used to wear. Are you making fun of my mom's taste?" "That's not what I meant. Besides, some of the clothes even have holes in them. Are you saying I should wear those?" "Enough." Mom started crying when I told her you didn't like the clothes. Please don't upset her anymore. After yelling at me, David stormed off into his own room, slamming the door behind him. "Wait, what? Is this my fault?" I never thought David would take his mom's side. Even if he didn't exactly take my side, he could at least try to understand my feelings. I felt as if I had been betrayed by my husband. Ultimately, another package from my mother-in-law arrived the following month. When I visited my in-laws' home, and it was discovered that I wasn't wearing the clothes she had sent, she exploded. "I went to all this trouble to send them to you. Why aren't you wearing them?" "Yeah, Mom went out of her way to send them to you." David joined her side against me. No one really cares or notices what you're wearing. More importantly, it's absolutely the worst that you're wasting mom's kindness like this. It seemed David was completely on his mother's side. Do you even understand how I feel being given tasteless old clothes, some even with holes that are out of style? I felt everything was becoming absurd. All my effort not to spoil my relationship with my mother-in-law and all my explanations to my husband seemed to be in vain. Ignoring my feelings, David started treating me more like a housemaid than ever before. What is this food? Are you skimping on it? You're lacking awareness as a wife. You're a full-time housewife, so you should do better. There are wrinkles in the laundry. My mother wouldn't make a mistake like this. Do it perfectly. Is he her mini-me? I thought. He was becoming incredibly picky. When I bought new clothes, he yelled, "Even though you wasted mom's kindness, you're buying new clothes." I didn't know if I could continue this married life any longer. I was pushed to the point where I started to think like that. Then, one day, David's company's trip was confirmed. Make sure you prepare for my company trip starting tomorrow. I was naturally frustrated, being treated almost like a housemaid recently. However, upon thinking, this might be a chance for revenge. My mother-in-law was still sending me tasteless, worn-out clothes, from men's to children's items, even things that I had no idea what they were. Recently, she even started sending me clothes so dirty I wondered where she picked them up. I dug out the men's clothes from there and stuffed them into David's travel bag. This should do. David's company trip was for 2 nights and 3 days. During this time, I stuffed all the rags that had been sent from my mother-in-law into his suitcase. The next day, as soon as David left for his trip, I began packing my things. When I left the house, I put divorce papers on the table that had already been filled out. At that same time, David, who was on his company trip, was being laughed at by his colleagues. "Hey, what's with those raggedy clothes, man? Did you pick them up from somewhere? Had a fight with your wife, didn't you?" Serves him right. I could picture David panicking. That night, as expected, David called me. "Hey, what's with the contents of the suitcase?" He was clearly furious, even over the phone. I held back laughter as I asked, "Something wrong with your suitcase?" "What do you mean, something wrong? What's with these raggedy clothes? You got something wrong in your head, making your husband wear such things. You think I'm crazy?" I said calmly, "David, remember what you said, right? Those clothes were sent out of goodwill by your mom. Wasting such goodwill would be pretty strange for a son, wouldn't it?" Apparently, David hadn't realized the clothes I packed were from his mother. At my revelation, he choked on his words. "Hey, you listening? Those clothes were sent by your mom. Since you were all for blaming me alongside her, you'll be wearing them without complaint, right?" Well, that's... David was utterly flustered. I told him outright, "You understand now, right? Did you finally get a feel for what I was going through?" I left the divorce papers at home. "Divorce, I'll leave the rest to you," and with that, I hung up, leaving things unsaid. David bombarded me with calls and emails, all of which I ignored. Afterwards, I returned to my parents' house. A few days later, my mother-in-law called me. "You listen here, you can't get divorced without my approval. If you don't listen, I'll hire a lawyer and sue you for emotional distress." I responded, "Feel free to do so." A week later, my mother-in-law told me to come to a meeting with a lawyer. I headed to the specified coffee shop. There, my mother-in-law, husband, and someone who seemed to be a lawyer were waiting. "What's this?" "I've already decided on the divorce, so there's nothing to talk about now." With a look like she was about to bite me, my mother-in-law yelled, "Don't mess around. After all we've done for you, we won't allow a selfish divorce." "Exactly," my husband chimed in with her. "I've been made a laughingstock at work because of the clothes you made me wear. Now everyone at work is laughing at me." A laughingstock? Isn't that directly mocking his own mother's taste in clothes? I thought. As I laughed in front of them, my mother-in-law glared with her eyes wide open. "What's so funny? You're such a cheeky wife." She then turned to the lawyer. "Hey, Mr. Lawyer, she can't possibly request a divorce from her position, can she?" I was told that the wife was the one causing the trouble." The lawyer questioned, looking puzzled. To this I clearly stated, "No, it's the other way around. I'm the one who's been harassed by my mother-in-law and husband, being sent clothes like garbage every single month." Upon hearing this, the lawyer seemed perplexed. This is completely different from what I was told. My mother-in-law also seemed flustered. Impatient with their reactions, my husband abruptly stood up. That's it. I'm divorcing a useless wife like you. I'm going to demand full emotional distress compensation, he yelled at me. At the sound of his voice, all the customers turned and looked at us. Taking advantage of this, I asked, so does this mean I have to pay emotional distress compensation? Wait, who exactly are you talking to? The person behind me. Huh. David and my mother-in-law were puzzled. I kindly clarified. Just then, a figure from the back of the room appeared before us. David and my mother-in-law were taken aback, their mouths agape with surprise. It's been a while, Mom. David. The person who appeared was David's brother, Sam. Sam, why are you here? Why am I here? Well, to defend Jessica, of course. Sam, David's older brother, is a renowned attorney specializing in divorce. Initially, my mother-in-law saw his counsel, but when it became apparent that I was the one wronged, he chose to defend me. Wait a minute, Sam. Why? I asked you to defend me, and you declined. Of course I did, Sam raised his voice, because it's clear to me that Jessica isn't at fault. Having heard her side of the story, I learned that you've been using the money I've been sending home every month under the pretense of hard times to torment Jessica, haven't you? That is. Indeed, my mother-in-law had been receiving money from Sam every month. Surely some of it was used for living expenses, but she was using the excess to buy shoddy clothes to send to me, all for the purpose of tormenting me. Sam, in a short time, had researched these facts and saved the evidence. And you, David, the verbal abuse you hurled at Jessica earlier, it's all been recorded. Sam pulled out a voice recorder and played back the harsh words David had shouted earlier. Of course, this too will serve as substantial evidence in the divorce proceedings. Hey Sam, you're kidding, right? Why would you side with Jessica instead of your own family? In response to David's outbursts, Sam answered firmly, I'm a lawyer. No matter how you look at it, the fault lies with you too. Your lawyer also seems to see that there's no hope of winning. Maybe he should decline to represent you. At Sam's words, David's lawyer nodded in agreement and quietly left the cafe. So, you two will be the ones paying the alimony. And Mom, I won't be sending any more money. Understand? Leaving these words behind, Sam left the cafe with me. Thank you, Sam, for helping me, even though you're busy. As I bowed my head, Sam gave me a warm smile. No worries. I just can't stand injustice, family or not. I'm really grateful for your help this time. Thank you so much. And so, thanks to Sam, I was able to divorce peacefully. Of course, I received substantial alimony from my mother-in-law and David. After the divorce, I haven't heard from my mother-in-law or David and have been living a peaceful life. Even though I had to part with Sam, who was so kind to me, because I divorced David, I felt a bit sad. But I need to move on quickly and live my own life. The best life that David and my mother-in-law could ever envy. With that promise in my heart, I started my new life. My name is Trisha, and my husband Brett and I have been married for 3 years. We built our own home right after we got married. Currently, we live with Brett's mother, who raised him as a single parent. The decision to live together was driven by Brett's strong desire to make his mother's life easier and her reluctance to live alone. Despite my initial apprehensions about living with my strong-willed mother-in-law, it turned out to be as difficult as I had imagined. I soon found that my time at work was my only escape. I am responsible for grocery shopping after work and preparing dinner, as my mother-in-law does no housework. I'm using the kitchen right now. Can you wait a bit? She asked. But I need to start making dinner soon, I replied. I'll be done in a little bit. Just wait for me. Okay, I understand. Why is there only one kitchen even though we live together? I wondered aloud. When we suggested a 2-family house, you refused, remember? Did I? I was probably being considerate then. The house would have been more expensive if we had chosen a 2-family house, wouldn't it? That's true, but in hindsight, it might have been better to have at least 2 kitchens. I thought so too, but I was being patient. You should be thankful to me for that. Is that so? I thought you refused the 2-family house because you didn't want to be alone. That's not the case. If I could, I would have preferred a 2-family house. Should we consider renovating then? Fine by me, but I can't pay for it. If we do, we would need some financial support from you as well. I have no intention to work anymore, and I spent a lot of money on Brett being a single mother, so I hardly have any retirement savings. Therefore, I can't contribute. But Brett and I are paying for all the household expenses, including the mortgage and utilities. If you want a two-family house, we would need your help. I don't have any money to spare. I spent all my money on Brett. Brett is working at a good company, so he should pay me back more than I spent on him. If that's the case, we'll have to cooperate and get along from now on. Why do I have to be told what to do by you? If you earn more money, you can afford to renovate, can't you? I'm not telling you what to do, and I don't think my salary is going to increase any further, so please don't count on me. Even though Brett makes a high salary because he married you with your low income, we can't live comfortably at all. What are you trying to say? Sometimes I can't help but think it would have been nicer if Brett had married someone better. Is that so? You're able to live because of my son, whom I've raised so carefully, so don't get too big for your britches. I'm working too, you know. I know exactly how much you make. You should be more grateful to my high-earning son. I am grateful. But what? If you're living off the money my son earned, so don't complain about this and that. I might be relying on him, but I do earn my own money as well. Enough. Why are you so angry? If you were highly paid, I wouldn't have to put up with these hard days. That's why I'm irritated. Even if you tell me that now, why do I have to live alone with you every day? Because Brett is on a business trip, we have no choice. He's almost never home for the past 3 years. It's his job, so we can't help it. He didn't go on business trips before marriage. Why did this happen? Because he changed jobs. But it's the same profession, right? Can the conditions change that much? It seems like a company with a lot of business trips. I'd rather live alone than this. If you hate living with just the two of us that much, why don't you live alone? Are you going to pay for my living expenses then? Maybe I'll do that. Why don't you ask Brett? Brett will definitely want to live with me. That may be true. I'll talk to him when he comes back on the weekend. During the week, Brett is away on business trips, so it's usually just me and my mother-in-law staying in the house we built. Even though I felt discontented, I tried my best not to cause a conflict. But it seems that my mother-in-law also dislikes living with me. We decided to discuss it when Brett comes home. It doesn't seem to work out with the three of us, so I talked to Brett first. Your mom said she doesn't like living with just me. What? Why? She doesn't like that you're not at home because of your business trips. Well, I can't help it. It's my job. She said she'd rather live alone than live with just me. What? It's your fault for making Mom say that. Why is it my fault? If you got along with her, she wouldn't have said such things. I bet you're just giving her lip, aren't you? No, that's not the case. I've been cooking meals and doing all the house chores properly. Well, that's expected, isn't it? What do you mean by that? Mom has been through a lot raising me. I want her to have an easier time now. And that's why I'm trying to do right by her. Do right by her? House chores are your responsibility. What's with that attitude? Please get along with Mom better. I'm doing my best, but if it's causing stress for both of us, maybe it would be better for her to live on her own. What a waste of money that would be. Well, yes, but maybe we should have built a duplex then. We can't afford a renovation now. If you could just curb your spending habits a bit, that wouldn't be a problem. Why is it always my fault? You're receiving extra for business trips, so instead of wasting it on slot machines, why not put it towards our living expenses? We'll be able to afford a renovation then. I don't want to do that. Slot machines are my only joy during those trips. What are we supposed to do being stressed out then? All you need to do is put in more effort and we'll get along like a real family. That's easy for you to say, but it's not easy to build a real familial bond with your in-laws, you know. You can say that after you've put in the effort. What's that supposed to mean? I'll ask Mom to be a bit more patient with you. Patient? It sounds like you're saying it's all my fault. Man, this is such a hassle. Your job is twofold: to get along with Mom and to take care of the house. I'm counting on you when I'm not home. It seemed Brett had spoken to my mother-in-law because she'd eventually gave up on the idea of me moving out. However, things got even worse after that conversation. One day at dinner, just the two of us again. I don't want this. It tastes bad. What's wrong? You've been very picky lately. Brett told me something. What was it? He said that I should get along better with you. I see. He told me that I should speak my mind and not hold back. Is that so? He said that if I lived as if you were my own daughter, my stress would disappear. So I decided to stop holding back. Even if I didn't want to eat something, I had been eating it anyway. But I decided to stop that too. So that's what it was. From that day forward, my mother-in-law became more and more selfish. My stress piled up higher than ever. Whenever I tried to discuss it with Brett, he would just say that I wasn't trying hard enough and wouldn't help me at all. I finally reached my breaking point. By the way, did you clean the bathroom yesterday? Yes, I did. You left it dirty. After hearing that from my mother-in-law, who had just gotten out of the bath, my anger reached its peak. I'm sick and tired of being nagged about these little things every single day. Huh? Brett told me to treat you like my real daughter, so that's what I'm doing. Real daughter? I don't remember becoming your daughter. What's with that attitude? I think you're mistaking me for a servant, not a daughter. Well, now that you mention it, you do seem like a servant. I'm not your servant. Then why don't you leave? That's what I should be saying. What, do you really plan on kicking me out even though you don't contribute to living expenses? Of course. Brett is the head of the household. But I'm Brett's wife. What are you talking about? I am Brett's mother. Do you think a wife has a higher status? It's not about status or anything like that. Then what is it? Do you think Brett will choose you? I think Brett will choose you, mother-in-law, because he cherishes you so much. That's more like it. Are you really sure it's okay if I leave? Why worry? It'll definitely be okay without you. I feel relieved, actually. Is that so? Even if it might make things financially difficult, it's okay. Huh? Why worry? It's none of your business. I understand. Brett earns $70,000 annually. We're comfortable, so stop undermining us. I'm not undermining. I'm just worried. There's no reason for you to worry. Stop belittling us. Get a divorce quickly. Understood. There seems to be no need to discuss this with Brett. I will pack my things and leave promptly. Finally the nuisance is gone. Several days later, I left without saying anything to Brett. If I had consulted with Brett, who adores his mother, I would have been the one blamed. As if to prove it, there was no contact from Brett, who must have returned from his business trip. I decided to divorce and would meet with Brett alone. Dude, I told you to get along with Mom. Why did you fight? It seems you're only siding with your mother, making everything my fault. What, you want to say you were harassed by Mom? Let's not. There's no need to argue here. I've already decided to get a divorce. Wait, are you intending to divorce me? Yes. Did you think we weren't going to divorce? Well, we're not on bad terms or anything. There's no way I can continue to live with a mother-in-law like that. And you, Brett, you're a mama's boy who has no intention of helping me. I'm not a mama's boy. You're nothing. Is that so? Your mother is all about you, Brett. It's mutual love, so enjoy it. Hey, you must be kidding me. I wish you a lifetime of happiness. We finalized our divorce papers without any issues, and the house, which was mortgaged under Brett's name, became his. A month after the divorce, I received a call from Brett. He said he needed to discuss something with me and his mother, so I reluctantly agreed to meet them. Wait a minute, what's going on? Why are you being so emotional all of a sudden? Don't play innocent. Excuse me, but we can't make ends meet with Brett's earnings alone. Well, of course you can't. What do you mean? We used to cover our living expenses with my earnings too, and he's bringing home less than I thought, less than $70,000 a year. It seems like you were mistaken, mother-in-law. What do you mean? The one making $70,000 a year is me. What? Then how much does Brett make? Brett used to earn around $50,000 a year before he changed jobs, but it dropped significantly after that. I didn't know that. Well, it's not a surprise. It's not something we would necessarily tell you. Even so, his take-home pay is way too low. That's because his salary is being deducted for his gambling debt. What? That's why his take-home pay is significantly less, and I had to supplement the shortfall with my salary. Why didn't you tell me sooner? No, I did tell you. I warned you that it would be financially tough, but then you told me it was none of your business. Well, I didn't say anything because I thought it would be bothersome to you. He seems to be gambling every day on his business trips too. Brett has a gambling addiction, you know. We managed to pay this month's gas, water, electricity, and everything else. But I don't think we can cover them for next month. That sounds tough. It is. So come back. What are you talking about? Marry him again and come back. That's way too convenient for you. If you come back, I promise I won't meddle or complain anymore. I apologize for everything in the past. That's impossible. At that point, Brett, who had been silent all along, spoke up. I didn't know anything about the money situation either. I thought we were making do with just my salary, but there's no way that was possible. I feel guilty for always siding with my mother. Can't we start over? Being able to leave a gambling addict was a relief, so remarrying is absolutely out of the question. What's with that attitude? Moreover, I can't handle a mama's boy. Don't say such things. You two are in love, so why not work together and give it your all? You should be able to make it. I'd like to leave soon if we're done with this topic. It's my day off, and I have things to do. Please come back home. If you don't, I'll be the one who has to work. Please work hard and support Brett. I'm counting on you. Ignoring their pleas for reconciliation, I went home. I had kept their contacts in case something happened, but I took this opportunity to block them and delete their contacts. I requested a transfer to a store near my parents' house and moved into an apartment close by. Brett's house is about a 2-hour drive away, and Brett dislikes my father, so he probably won't come to this area. Half a year later, while working at the previous store near Brett's house as part of a support team, I passed by their house and was surprised to find it was up for sale. They must have been unable to make the payments. Later, while I was at work, I saw my mother-in-law at the supermarket next to the cell phone shop. She noticed me and approached. I finally found you. What's going on? I thought we might meet if I waited here. To my surprise, my mother-in-law was working at the supermarket next to the cell phone shop. Where are you working? You can tell by looking, so yes, I'm working here. So you're working here in hopes of seeing me? That's right. I wanted to ask you to come back home as soon as I saw you. Are you still saying that? I have no intention of returning. Don't say that. We had to sell our house and can't live there anymore. I see. We're somehow managing to live in a small apartment, just the two of us. Well, that's good. You're living happily with your beloved son. Don't mock me. Brett has a part-time job now and often doesn't come home on his days off. We barely have any time to talk. Is that so? Brett must be having a hard time. I didn't want to work anymore, but look at me now. You're having a tough time too, but please continue to support Brett. I can't do it. Please, won't you consider reconciling? Stop being so persistent. I've told you it's impossible. Don't say that. Please. I have to get back to work. I don't have time to engage in pointless conversations. It's not pointless for me. It is pointless. I wish you and Brett a long and happy life together. Wait a minute. Apparently, the two of them who sold the house are now living in a small apartment. As far as I know, they still have 2 years left to repay their gambling debt, so they'll probably live hand to mouth until then. I hope they can work together and overcome this. As for me, I'm doing my job every day with energy and enjoyment. Things have been going well for me since the divorce. Good things come in bunches, and I'm grateful to be dating a wonderful man right now. I want to be happy next time. I'm such a great father for buying our daughter a house. You can leave if you disagree. After all, once you've given me the money, I don't need you anymore. Those were the arrogant words of my husband, who made the unilateral decision to buy a high-rise condo with my money. But it turns out he had a shocking plan in mind. As soon as I heard it, I retaliated without a second thought. I went to my room and brought out our divorce papers. All right, here, divorce papers. The look on my husband's face was priceless when he saw the divorce papers. I suppose he never imagined I'd have them ready to go. But the real counterattack was just beginning. I couldn't help but smirk. My name is Lily Johnson. I'm a 50-year-old office worker who has loved the Japanese language since my student days. I can carry on a casual conversation in Japanese without any issues. When I was 23, I married for the first time. Unfortunately, my husband left this world just 6 months after our wedding. The cause was a traffic accident. He was hit by a drunk driver. Back then, I couldn't accept the harsh reality and lived my days with a gloomy face. I received $500,000 in life insurance money after my husband's death. But no amount of money could bring him back. During the darkest times of my life, I was comforted by a man named Ethan Johnson. He was a co-worker at my company who would listen to my story for hours on end. Over time, I found myself falling for him, and we married when I was 25. I never forgot about my first husband. I still vividly remember the times we shared. I decided to keep the life insurance money untouched for emergencies. A year after marrying Ethan, we had a daughter, Mia. Mia is now an illustrator living on her own. With her grown up, one might think I'd have a peaceful life with my husband, but that's not the case. Our relationship started to deteriorate when Mia was in her junior year of high school because we couldn't agree on Mia's education. From the time Mia was born, Ethan had mapped out her future on his own. He repeatedly expressed his wish for Mia to attend a prestigious university, believing it would open up more opportunities for her future. He even enrolled her in tutoring services since elementary school. Ethan never pushed Mia too hard to study, so I didn't oppose. But Mia loved drawing more than studying, and even as an amateur, I could tell she was incredibly talented. I had a hunch she might make it in her career someday. That hunch turned out to be right when Mia announced during her junior year of high school, "I want to be an illustrator in the future, so I want to go to an art school for university." I wanted Mia to pursue what she loved, so I agreed. But Ethan was vehemently opposed. Go to a prestigious university like Harvard. After graduation, work for a big corporation. It's more secure, and you'll be happier, he yelled, completely dismissing Mia's dream. Even when Mia suggested I could start by working for a company, Ethan wouldn't hear it. "An illustrator? You're just playing around, drawing pictures. I didn't invest all this money in you for you to have such a frivolous career." He was so harsh that I found myself stepping in. "There's no need to speak like that. It's Mia's life, let her try," I said. But that only made Ethan angrier. "Mia is my daughter. It's a child's job to fulfill their parents' dreams. And if she lives as I say, she's guaranteed to be happy." He spouted such nonsense. There's no guarantee that attending a renowned university or landing a job at a big corporation equals a happy life. It was shocking to realize Ethan held such a distorted belief. I had hoped he would eventually come to understand and support Mia's decision. But that was wishful thinking. Despite our attempts to persuade him, our efforts were in vain. A deep rift formed between us while I took on all the financial responsibility for Mia's education and living expenses. He seemed dissatisfied, constantly complaining and making snide remarks. Despite all this, Mia was admitted to her first choice art university and worked hard on her studies. She landed a job as an illustrator at a company and started living on her own. Though there are tough times, like working through the night and on holidays, she's doing well. However, my husband still refuses to accept Mia's job. He constantly complains, saying we wasted money on tutoring services. "It's embarrassing to have such a failure as a daughter," he often said. I thought his views would change once he saw Mia standing on her own. But there's not even a trace of that. He's also been harsh towards me, presiding with Mia. He yells about the food tasting bad or the cleaning not being done almost every day, despite not being able to do any housework himself and leaving it all to me. At this point, I realized that this was his true nature. He seems to be the type of person who can't stand when things don't go his way. He was kind when Mia was obedient, but changed dramatically when she expressed her desire to become an illustrator. It's probably due to his personality. Being at home was painful for me, and the company became my place of comfort. We work at the same company but in different departments, so we can avoid each other. Around this time, I received a certain offer. Hearing it, I made a big decision. One day, my husband suddenly said something unexpected. "I've decided to buy Mia a brand new high-rise condominium. Mia is still my precious daughter after all. I want her to live somewhere nice. I've already started the paperwork with a real estate agent." Despite his contempt for Mia, this sudden turn of events aroused suspicion. Moreover, I wondered if he had the money to buy a new high-rise condominium. Seeing my reaction, he smirked. "Don't worry, you're the one paying for the high-rise condominium." "What? Hold on a second. You can't just decide something like that without discussing it," I retorted. Ethan just scoffed. "I know you've got $500,000 from your previous husband's life insurance, right? You can buy it with that." "With your money, I'm going to live in the high-rise condominium with Mia. I've had to put up with her, so I'm planning to make full use of her. You and Mia are ultimately my property, so just obey me." A surge of anger rose within me. He had decided to buy the high-rise condominium despite me and Mia. I couldn't comprehend his way of thinking. Incredibly, he carelessly revealed his scheme and intention. Besides, there was no way I was going to let my important life insurance money be used for such a thing. I am truly a good father, buying a house for my daughter. If you oppose, it's divorce. Just give me the money and I'm done with you. The moment I heard that, I struck back without mercy. I went to my room and brought out the divorce papers. Fine, here, divorce papers. When I showed him the divorce papers, he was stunned. He must not have expected me to have them, but the real retaliation started here. I smirked, facing my bewildered husband. I explained what I had been considering for some time now. I can't trust a man who discriminates against his own daughter like that. I'm tired of living a life where I'm constantly criticized by you. I decided a while ago to divorce you. I was just waiting for the right time to bring it up, and then you said you wanted a divorce. It worked out just fine. He must have intended the divorce talk to be a threat. Completely flustered, he stammered. You see. Ignoring him, I filled in the divorce papers. Come on, you write it down too. You want to be free from me too, don't you? When I urged him, he reacted in rage. What do you mean divorce? It was just a joke. What are you thinking bringing out divorce papers? Hearing that, my anger reached its peak. I don't understand you either. I don't understand why you would buy a high-rise condominium just to spite your family. If you say we can't divorce, I'm willing to consult a lawyer. Begrudgingly, he filled in the divorce papers, but he was furious, saying, Remember this. It seemed like he would retaliate in some form if I stayed in the house. I immediately left the house and submitted the divorce papers to the office. When I reported everything to Mia by phone, she was as angry as I was at my husband's outrageous behavior. That's terrible. You're right to divorce him. You can stay in my condo for a while, she said. So I decided to take her up on her offer. That night, Mia and I discussed and planned to retaliate against my husband. Then, about a week later, on a day off, Mia and I visited the house for my husband, or rather ex-husband, lives. Even though I was living there just a week ago, it felt like someone else's house. When we rang the doorbell, he came out immediately. What do you two want? Did you come to apologize for what happened? My ex-husband looked down on Mia and me with a condescending gaze. I was quite irritated, but I swallowed my anger and spoke in a slightly weak voice. That's right. I came to apologize because I thought I had done something wrong. I'm sorry, Dad. Mia also made a remorseful face, quite an actress. However, my ex-husband didn't realize it was a performance and seemed genuinely pleased, saying, I see, so you decided to reflect on your actions. I'm happy. However, he seemed curious about the bags we were carrying. What are you doing with all those bags? We were carrying bags filled to the brim in both hands. The bags were tied up so you couldn't see inside. I took a stack of $10,000 bills from one of the bags. By the way, this was real money. I thought it was wrong what I did to you, so I decided to give you my late husband's life insurance money. You can live in a high-rise condominium with Mia with this money. There's $500,000. Can you put it in the safe? The ex-husband was entranced by the $10,000 stack of bills. Sure, please put it in the safe. He easily let Mia and me into the house. Even though it had only been a week since we left, the house was littered with laundry and garbage. Come to think of it, the ex-husband was very bad at tidying up and doing housework. Imagining that he must be having a hard time living alone, I couldn't help but smile. Mia and I stuffed the contents of the bags into the safe. However, we put the $10,000 we showed him back in the bag, not in the safe. Fortunately, he wasn't watching us as he went to the kitchen, saying, I'll make some tea. When I returned to Mia's condo, I packed my bags and went out again. I was going to set out on my own to a new place. Take care, Mom. Mia saw me off with a smile. I'll contact you when I settle down. Take care of yourself, Mia. I left Mia's condo with a smile on my face. 2 days later, I was asleep in my new home when I received a call from my ex-husband. Hey, what happened to the $500,000? There's nothing but garbage in the safe. As I burst into laughter, I thought to myself, he really took a while to figure it out, huh? My ex-husband had fallen neatly into my trap. The majority of what was in those bags was simply scrap paper. I had rolled up unwanted newspapers and filled the bags. I told him that each bag contained $500,000. But that was a lie to gain his trust. I did prepare $10,000 in real cash from the bank. That money was immediately returned to my account, so I had nothing to lose. If he had asked to see the contents of the bags, I was ready to show him, scoffing at the absurdity of the situation. But he was fooled by just the sight of the $10,000 and didn't suspect a thing. You've treated Mia and me horribly. I think it's fair to return the favor. If you want to hold a grudge, hold it against your past self, not me. When I said that, he responded desperately, I understand, I was wrong. Can we live together again? I can't afford the high-rise condo, and I can't manage the housework. My place has turned into a trash heap. Taken aback by his self-centered plea, I retorted, I'm not your ATM or your housemaid. You're an adult, figure it out. Besides, I'm in Japan now. I can't come back to you. That's right, I was now living in Tokyo, Japan. This wasn't a mere overseas trip. I received an offer to work abroad from my company and decided to take it up. I've always wanted to work overseas and I love studying Japanese. The offer that came before our divorce was this opportunity to work overseas. Once I heard about it, I decided to divorce him and live overseas. I could live my dream and get away from my ex-husband. It was killing two birds with one stone. I had told Mia, but kept it from my ex, who was clearly taken aback. So that's why I haven't seen you at work recently. Why didn't you tell me? Why should I? We're in different departments and we're strangers now. Oh, by the way, Mia has something she wants to say to you. Tomorrow we'll call you at 8 p.m. your time using a messaging app. Oh, all right. Is Mia going to live with me? We'll see. Wait until tomorrow. I said that and hung up. But I knew what Mia was going to talk about. I was looking forward to seeing his reaction. As I drifted off to sleep, the next morning I had to get up fairly early due to the time difference, but it couldn't be helped. I started up the messaging app and video called my ex and Mia. Mia started expressing her feelings to her father right away. I loved you when I was a kid, Dad. I respected you as a parent and loved you from the bottom of my heart. Ethan looked pleased to hear that, but Mia's speech didn't stop there. But that's all in the past. You outright denied my career path, right? That's when I realized your true nature. You just wanted to control me and there's no love in that. I hate you now and I don't want to see you again. This call is our final contact. Upon hearing that, my ex seemed to be on the verge of tears. Don't say such things. I had expected him to get angry, but this reaction was surprising. Maybe he assumed Mia would love him no matter what. But Mia's harsh words continued. This is how I really feel, Dad. You need to reflect on how you hurt Mom all this time. Also, I moved out, so there's no point in going to the apartment where I used to live. Don't use detectives or anything to forcefully find out my new address. That's all I wanted to say. I also told him something I had forgotten to mention earlier. I've explained the circumstances of our divorce to our workplace, relatives, and your parents. I don't think relying on them will do you any good. Well, goodbye. Once Mia ended the video call, I also ended mine. My ex-husband was pleading, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. I apologize, so please give me another chance. But I didn't care about that anymore. Later, when Mia and I talked, she said, I feel so much better now that I've said what I wanted to. I felt relieved after seeing my ex-husband in distress too. Apparently, it became uncomfortable for my ex-husband at his workplace. Though he resigned, he was disowned by relatives and his own parents. He couldn't buy the high-rise condominium and had to cancel. Moreover, he caused a scene at Mia's workplace, trying to call her out at the reception desk. He was immediately locked out and banned from the premises. My ex-husband, who kept repeating his selfish behavior, ended up losing everything instead of gaining anything. He seems to have lost all his energy and is now living as a recluse at home. A colleague wanted to ask him something about the handover of work and tried to contact him, but he didn't answer. The colleague went to his house reluctantly, where he found my ex-husband looking lifeless with a thick beard. He looked like a ghost, and a bad smell was coming from the room. According to the colleague, his house is probably in a state of a garbage dump. Looking at my ex-husband living such an unfortunate life, I couldn't help but think he got what he deserved. On the other hand, I am enjoying my job overseas. I do hit cultural barriers being surrounded by foreigners, but I overcome them by carefully communicating. I can use my proficiency in Japanese, and I'm really glad I transferred overseas. Mia is working hard as an illustrator, and it seems like she's been given some big projects recently. I have a lot of meaningful work, and it's fun, she said over the phone. It's a joy for me as a parent to see my daughter doing what she loves. Despite all the hurdles, both Mia and I are starting to shine in our lives. My mother-in-law casually broke the news to my stunned self. We're going to be living together now. We just remodeled it into a duplex for convenience. The property is in your name, right, Emma? Sorry to bother you, but could you please cover the $80,000 remodeling bill? She and my husband laughed triumphantly. Witnessing this, I filled with resolve. I was about to confront them with the truth that even my husband didn't know, along with the evidence. I am Emma Davis, 26 years old. I live a bit away from downtown in a nature-rich area and work an office job while drawing illustrations as a hobby. Lately, I enjoy uploading my drawings on social media and reading the daily comments. I have a husband who is 3 years older than me, and we were enjoying our married life in our favorite old farmhouse that we bought right after our wedding. However, there has been a visitor to this house once a month since we got married who always gives me a headache. Emma, I'm here. Please open up quickly. Hearing the persistent banging on the sliding front door, I rushed to it. Aha, mother-in-law, I'll open it right away, I said even though there was a perfectly good doorbell right next to the door. I tried to make a smile as I opened the sliding door. There are so many bugs around here. It's so annoying. Is George still at work? Poor thing, even on Saturday. Oh, I brought some of his favorite food. I saw a woman holding a large bag, looking tired from waiting. Beyond the door, while dealing with her rapid-fire chatter, I pasted on a fake smile. The once-a-month visitor is my husband's mother, my mother-in-law. My husband, being an only child, she insists on taking care of him even after our marriage, and to my gratitude, she even instructs me on house chores. The last time she came to our house, she rearranged all the food in the fridge, and I had to start the next day's breakfast preparation from hunting down the ingredients. I recall my husband repeatedly telling me before we got married, if my parents ever need care, we'll live together. I want you to understand that. I'm disappointed to think I might have to give up this beloved old house when the time comes, but I've come to accept it. What bothers me more is the thought of living with this mother-in-law 24/7. Sorry for my husband, it fills me with a bit of gloom. Fast forward 2 years into our farmhouse married life. I heard from my husband that my father-in-law had slipped on the stairs at home and broke his leg. They will need our help from now on. Let's live together, just as we discussed before our marriage, my husband said. Yes, I'm worried too, so I think it's a good idea. Can I continue my drawing hobby? I was worried about my father-in-law's health, so I agreed without hesitation to move in together. However, I was anxious that being caught up in housework and taking care of my in-laws might rob me of the time for my hobby of drawing. Whether he was aware of my anxiety or not, my husband just said, I want you to prioritize the house, and left the room, headed to his office. Being left alone in my room, I felt like I had half given up on my selfish husband. While looking back at the illustrations I had drawn up until now, one by one, I began to sort out my feelings. Just as I had made up my mind to live with them, an unexpected event occurred. While I was working as usual at my workplace, I suddenly felt numbness in my hands and feet and was instantly overwhelmed by intense dizziness and collapsed. Thanks to a colleague who immediately called an ambulance, my life was not in danger. It turned out to be a stroke at a young age after a medical examination. Although I had been warned about high blood pressure in health checks before, I regretted neglecting it and not going to the hospital. Including detailed examinations, surgery, and rehabilitation, the hospitalization period turned out to be about 2 months. From the discovery of the disease to the hospitalization, everything progressed at a brisk pace, and I realized that my husband had shown very little concern. After being diagnosed with a stroke, I took up my phone with trembling hands and called my husband right away. The only thing I could hear from the phone was his disappointing voice saying, I see, so living together will be postponed, huh? I couldn't respond to the fact that he was more worried about our future living arrangements at my in-laws' house than about my health. Since my father-in-law was still in the hospital with a fracture, there was no immediate need to worry about caregiving. It was a blessing in disguise that I could focus on my treatment. Also, since we don't have children, there was no need to worry about that either. Suddenly, the face of my mother-in-law, who always says, I want to see my grandchild's face soon, popped up in my mind. As if to shake it off, I picked up the sketchbook nearby. Recently, I've been too busy preparing to live with my in-laws and going through examinations since my collapse to have time for my favorite illustrations. Once I started living with my in-laws, I would probably lose even more time to draw. I decided to think of this hospitalization period as the last free time that God had given me and resolved to fully enjoy my hobby. When this period was over, I decided in my heart to do my best for my husband and in-laws, whether it was housework or anything else. The 2-month hospital stay ended in a flash, and finally, the day of discharge arrived. My husband casually asked if he should come to pick me up, but I wanted to spend some time alone until I got home, so I declined, feeling a bit guilty. While I was on the bus, I saw the familiar landscape outside the window and realized that I was already near home. The sunlight hitting the beautiful green leaves was dazzlingly sparkling, making me feel indescribable as I thought, this is goodbye to this rich, natural place. Since my in-laws' house is located relatively close to the city center, my life would change drastically from now on. Feeling a little lonely, I slowly got off the bus at the familiar bus stop. As I was heading towards my soon-to-be farewell home, I suddenly stopped in my tracks at the sight before me. There was supposed to be my favorite old private house here, but instead, there was a house I had never seen before. Since I had been in the hospital for about 2 months, I checked the position of the surrounding buildings and the way I came, wondering if I had mistaken the location, but it was not a mistake after all. There was no use wandering around, so I timidly pressed the intercom of the house. A familiar voice said, yes. The voice was undoubtedly my husband's. Still feeling confused, I quietly answered, it's Michelle, into the intercom. The front door creaked open and my husband, in his casual attire, came out. Aha, welcome home. You came home earlier than I expected. I had the day off today. I could have picked you up. George, what happened to our house? Why has it changed so much? I interrupted my husband, who seemed relaxed, maybe just woke up, his hair mussed, to ask my question with a sense of disbelief. However, disregarding my anxiousness, George only responded with a vague, huh. What's up? What happened? Without intending to answer my question. Just then, I heard laughter coming from inside the house. Thinking it couldn't be, I pushed past my husband and headed toward the living room. When I opened the unfamiliar door leading to the living room, I saw my mother-in-law lying on the couch, watching TV. She was clutching her stomach and laughing while watching the TV screen. Why is my mother-in-law in this house? Oh, Michelle, welcome back. Hospital stays can be long, but don't worry, I took care of the house while you were gone. I wondered what this house stuff my mother-in-law was talking about could be, chores? Or, with an overwhelming bad feeling, I pressed my mother-in-law on why the old house had changed so much. Without showing any sign of guilt, she blurted out, well, we're all going to live together, right? So I just remodeled it into a duplex to make it more comfortable. The phrase just remodeled it into a duplex kept replaying in my mind. My mother-in-law was always the type to interfere with our life, but I never expected her to remodel our house without permission. Moreover, weren't we supposed to start living together in my in-laws' house, which is closer to the city center? Every time my mother-in-law visited our old house, she used to complain about the bugs and the short walk from the station. Despite that, why all these changes? A lot of things have changed. Oh, and there's something else important I have to tell you. Turning off the TV she had been watching, my mother-in-law whispered to me with a grin. The remodeling cost a bit. I believe the title to this house is under your name, Michelle. I'm sorry, but could you handle the payment? Her chuckles carried not a hint of apology. Ah, it's $80,000, she added, her smile deepening. Remodeling cost. The title to this house. $80,000. The unexpected words felt like a punch to the head, and I felt my legs shaking. I couldn't even find the words to reply as I stared at my mother-in-law, who was laughing fearlessly. My husband, who was at the entrance, opened the living room door and sneaked in. The moment I saw him, my feet naturally headed toward him, holding a faint hope that he would surely be on my side. I relayed to my husband exactly what my mother-in-law had said, clinging to a desperate hope for his reaction. But all I received from him was a cold response. Well, that's about right. Take care of it, will you? That's right. That's the kind of man he is. When I collapsed from a stroke. That's right. That's the kind of man he is. When I collapsed from a stroke, he was more concerned about our living arrangements than my health. He's a man who will stop if his mother says green means stop and will go if she says red means go. A man who always thinks his mother is right. The discomfort and dissatisfaction I felt toward my husband escalated. Once it flooded, I was done. I thought from the bottom of my heart I would throw this family away. I understand now, George. I am going to divorce you. And mother-in-law, now Cecilia, please handle the renovation costs on your own. After declaring this all at once, I turned my back on them and moved to leave the room as quickly as possible. But it seemed they weren't going to let me go so easily. I've been losing interest in you anyway, so it's no big deal. But remember, this house is in your name, Emma, so you have a responsibility to pay. That's right. Feel free to leave, but please settle your dues first. I was astonished at the two of them who selfishly made their claims. I couldn't help but let out a sigh. Surely if I turned around, I'd see their smug faces grinning in victory. I refused to look back, standing tall as I replied. You keep saying the house is in my name, George, but did you forget the ownership has been transferred to you? I revealed the truth, but they only laughed at me, believing I was lying to avoid paying. That's when I brought up how George had asked me to change the property's ownership when we got married, as he didn't want the house to be in his wife's name for appearance's sake. Since I didn't particularly care about the property title, I had immediately transferred it to his name. Upon hearing this, the laughter of the two who had been so complacent until now abruptly stopped, and I could feel the panic gradually setting in. I don't recall saying such a thing. There's no proof anyway. Anticipating this response, I turned back to face them, walked past them, and opened a drawer of a shelf from our old house. Let's see, it should be somewhere around here. Ah, here it is. This is the proof. I took out a document from the drawer where the property and the house ownership were listed and showed it in front of their faces. When I carefully pointed to the part that said the ownership was in George's name, my husband's face turned pale. That's fraud. I never thought you'd actually do it, and I definitely can't pay such a huge sum of $80,000. I was disgusted with my husband, who started yelling as soon as he realized the payment obligation was on him. Since a decent conversation seems impossible, let's communicate through lawyers from now on. Cecilia, your son seems to be in quite a pickle, so please take good care of him from now on. Beside my loud husband, I smiled at my mother-in-law, who was standing dazedly, and finally turned my back on them, leaving their home for good. After that, my husband called several times, but I chose to ignore him entirely, deciding to communicate formally through a lawyer. Given our already strained relationship and problems with my mother-in-law, the divorce was settled without any issues. Regarding the matter that my husband insistently shouted when I left, change of name is a fraud. It was decided that there was an agreement between us because it was changed when we got married 2 years ago. My lawyer assured me with a smile that this was neither fraud nor anything illegal. With that, all the uncertainty inside me was completely dispelled. It seemed that the cost of renovating that house was supposed to be paid in full by me as soon as I got discharged from the hospital. Wanting to applaud, I now appreciate the well-crafted spiteful act of pushing me into hell just after I had endured surgery and rehabilitation, and finally got discharged due to illness. In the end, since the house was in my husband's name, it was his duty to make the lump sum payment, and he ended up strangling himself. In addition, I was able to secure alimony after the successful divorce. My husband, who had been hit with a claim for a total amount that he could not possibly pay off, had either borrowed money from dangerous places or hadn't. While I was fighting with my husband and mother-in-law, I received an apology from my father-in-law, Bob, who had been hospitalized with a broken leg, saying, "I'm sorry for my wife and son's behavior." Of course, it didn't seem that Bob was involved in this matter. However, there's no denying that for 2 years after our marriage, he had ignored his wife and my cold husband. After briefly replying to Bob's message, I decided to cut all ties with that family and start a new life. Since then, my health has gradually improved, and I was able to return to work. When I was married, I used to draw illustrations while being mindful of my husband's gaze. But now I can immerse myself in it as much as I want, whenever I want. Originally, I was just drawing as a hobby, but now I get job offers from the social networking site where I post my illustrations, and I now spend more time drawing for work than for pleasure. Today, I'm heading to see an old farmhouse in a somewhat rural town. My current dream is to buy this old farmhouse with the alimony from my husband and my savings and to open an art studio. Today, I'm about to take the first step towards this dream. On the bus, as I gazed out at the scenery, I found myself recalling that day, The day I left the hospital that changed my life forever. The abundant natural scenery outside is the same as that day, but my feelings are clear and I'm excited about the new life that's about to begin. The leaves on the trees, illuminated by the sunlight, looked so bright that they dazzled. My name is Kathy, and ever since I was little, I loved my dad dearly. He was the kind of man who always put his family first and himself last. He made sure my brother and I never lacked anything and took care of my stay-at-home mom too. He would hand over his entire paycheck to her, never complaining even when he didn't have a dime to his name. Thanks to my dad, my brother and I lived fulfilling lives. I thought our family of 4 would continue to live this way forever. But life can be so cruel. Suddenly, I lost my dad, the man I loved so much. It was just when I was in my senior year of high school and my brother was in 8th grade. That day, like any other, Dad left for work as usual, but then he suddenly collapsed at his workplace and was rushed to the hospital. By the time my brother and I got to the hospital, Dad was already gone. Mom arrived an hour later. My brother and I were sobbing uncontrollably, but Mom was strangely calm. She was shocked by Dad's sudden death, sure, but she shed no tears. "Mom, what are we gonna do now? Dad's gone," I asked her. Mom was a stay-at-home wife, which meant she had no income. Without Dad, how could our family survive? But Mom didn't answer my question. "Mom, are you listening? Dad's dead." Then Mom let out a big sigh and bluntly said, "What's done is done. Can you stop crying so loud? It's giving me a headache." Wait, what? What did she say? What's done is done about Dad's death? Sure, no one could have predicted or prevented such a thing. But to talk about Dad, who supported us all these years, like that was just too cruel. For the first time, I felt a surge of disgust towards my mom. I had always felt that Mom was spoiled and overly reliant on Dad. But to maintain her indifference, even in such a situation, Mom laughed scornfully at my glaring face. "What are you glaring at? It's not like it's my fault he's dead." And so our nightmare began. As soon as Dad's funeral was over, Mom started bringing strange men into our home. We were living in a rented condominium, and the room that Dad used to use was taken over by one of these men. Our everyday life took a dramatic turn. Mom and her lover treated my brother and me like nuisances. They would raise their voices at us if anything didn't go their way. Mom just watched with a smirk, never scolding the man. The hellish situation went on for months, and my brother and I were at our breaking point. Mom had always managed all of Dad's salary, saving a portion of it in her own bank account while cutting down Dad's allowance. It seemed she was using that money to have fun with her lover. We couldn't take this life anymore. I had to change our situation for my brother's sake. With this in mind, I decided to look for a part-time job. I was ready to give up on college, planning to work immediately after high school. As I was contemplating all of this, a man claiming to be a lawyer showed up one day. "This was commissioned by your father," he said. Before his passing, the lawyer then pulled out Dad's will. Mom appeared taken aback by the lawyer's sudden visit, unaware of the truth he was about to unveil. The lawyer clarified the situation to us. Your father had realized that something was wrong with his health early on, but he believed that if he didn't work, the family would be in a bind. So he wanted to leave something behind for a rainy day. As the lawyer unsealed our father's will, he explained it in layman's terms. Your father intended to divide his $20 million fortune by giving $10 million to your mom and $5 million each to you kids. Upon hearing this, Mom eagerly addressed the lawyer. "So when do I get the money?" "As soon as all the official proceedings are complete. The funds will be transferred shortly." Without skipping a beat, Mom prepared a pen and signed the necessary documents. The talk was complex for us kids, but we decided to accept our father's legacy gratefully. A few days later, my brother and I made the decision to leave the house. I started to consider what would be essential for us living on our own, and what the bare minimum actions would be. If we were leaving the house, we needed to find a new place to live, but would anyone be willing to rent a property to high school students? While pondering, I remembered that the parents of a middle school friend owned an apartment. The next day, I visited their house, promptly explained the situation, and asked, "Since we have our father's legacy and I plan to start a part-time job, could you introduce us to a good apartment?" In response, my friend's parents proposed, "Since we can't legally lease to high school students, how about we rent you a room in our apartment? You just need to pay the monthly rent. Yes, I'd be grateful. Thank you so much. My friend's parents were worried until the end, but when they perceived my strong determination, they finally encouraged me, saying, "You can count on us anytime you need help." That night, I brought up the matter to Mom. "Mom, Sam and I are planning to leave the house soon." "What are you planning to do?" she asked. "We're going to live together, just the two of us." I suppose our affairs didn't matter to Mom in the least. Without even looking at me, Mom dismissed us nonchalantly. "Well, do as you please. I couldn't care less what happens to you two. It'll actually be better without you two around, so you won't get in the way of my time with him." At that moment, my barely lingering affection for Mom crumbled completely. "Okay, I understand. Thanks for everything, Mom." With a heavy dose of sarcasm towards Mom, I left the house I had lived in for years. Starting to live with my brother turned out to be way more challenging than I imagined. Early morning paper routes, then school, and a part-time job at the supermarket after returning home. I didn't want to touch the money left by our father, so I tried to cover living expenses with my part-time wage as much as possible. At the supermarket, they gave me the boxed meals scheduled for disposal. That became our dinner. I knew my brother, being a middle schooler, would want some fun, so I gave him a modest monthly allowance. "Here you go, Sam. This is your allowance for the month. But you hardly spend anything on yourself," he said. "Don't worry about me. Having fun is an essential experience too, you know." Despite his reservations, I insisted on giving my brother his allowance. I felt guilty about the financial constraints he had to endure because of me, so I wanted to do at least the bare minimum for him. Our life continued like that for a while, and before we knew it, it was fall. The buzz among my classmates was all about where they were going to college. To me, those conversations felt like such a luxury, I couldn't think of anything else. But my thoughts were consumed with where I would work after graduation and how I would help my brother get to college. One day, I happened to have the day off from my part-time job. My brother and I were enjoying a leisurely lunch at home when the apartment doorbell rang. Who could it be? When I opened the door, there was Mom. "Mom," I said, surprised. "Don't you dare call me that. Now, where is your banking card?" "A banking card?" Mom suddenly barged in, demanding the banking card, and I was totally lost. She ignored my confusion and shouted at me to hurry up and hand it over. "Wait a minute, why so sudden?" I tried to ask, but she wouldn't listen. She even went so far as to march straight into the house, rummaging through the rooms. "Hey Mom, stop it." My brother tried to stop her, but she just pushed him aside with a curt, "Shut up." I rushed to my brother's side, pleading with Mom to stop. Eventually, she found the banking card in a drawer. After checking the untouched balance in the account, she smirked. "Oh, there's quite a bit left. You're just like me, doing so well. How admirable." Disgusted, I glared at her, and that must have irked her because she shoved me next. "What's with that look? Just do as I say. I'm your mother." She left with our banking cards. I felt so helpless and sank to the floor. Why, after all the hard work to get this far, does she have to ruin everything again? The peaceful life my brother and I had finally managed to grab. I worked so hard without even touching our father's inheritance, all for my brother's future. "Sis," my brother comforted me as I cried. I felt pathetic for not being able to protect my only brother. Just then, I remembered something. The one letter that the lawyer had given me when he visited a while back. He asked me to give it to you without letting Mom know. "Open this only if you're in trouble," he had said. The lawyer, seemingly aware of the situation with Mom, had discreetly handed me an envelope. Life with my brother had started right after, and in all the bustle, I completely forgot about it. I opened the letter from my deceased father and read its contents. It was an address. It was somewhere far away from where we lived, an area completely unknown to us. However, I figured there must be a reason my father left it. I decided to go to that place with my brother. We got on a plane, and then we took a taxi from the airport. What awaited us was a house with a grand gate, something you'd only see in movies or TV shows. "What is this gigantic house?" My brother seemed overwhelmed by the sheer size of the house. As we stood there, a burly man came out from inside. "Oh my, you've come." We found a letter from our father. Your address was in it," I explained. The man began to speak to someone on the phone. After a brief moment, the man changed his demeanor and said, "Please come in," inviting us into the mansion. In the great room to which we were guided, an elderly woman was sitting alone. Upon seeing us, she greeted us. "Kathy and Sam, right? Nice to meet you. I'm your grandmother." Grandmother. We were shocked and couldn't help but exclaim loudly. We had never heard any stories about our father's family, nor did we even know we had a grandmother. Not just that, but who would have thought that our father's childhood home would be such an impressive estate? "Since you've come, does that mean my son has passed away?" Her son, that is, our father. I gave a small nod to her. Grandmother, interrupting me, grandmother took out a large bag and handed it to me. "This is something your father left with me. He said if they ever come to visit, give this to them." When I opened the bag, it was packed with countless bundles of bills, the likes of which I'd never seen before. Ignoring our surprise, grandmother began to explain. "We had a falling out a long time ago, and for a while, we didn't talk at all. But about a year and a half ago, he suddenly showed up and left this bag." According to her, her father's family, in other words, our grandmother, was part of a long-established gang. Our father had refused to take over the family business and had cut ties with his grandmother after a big fight. When we heard it was a gang, it all made sense. That grand entrance. Of course, it was a surprise to learn that our father's family was involved in a gang. This turn of events was just as astonishing. Perhaps our father knew about Mom's cheating habits. Even when it came to the inheritance, there is a limit to what we, as minors, could do. The allocation of the money was likely just for formality's sake. What our father really wanted to leave us was that letter with grandmother's address on it. Our father had been planning this in case anything happened to us. I was moved to tears by our father's kindness. I took the time to explain everything, how he had been treated poorly by Mom and her lover, and how Mom had taken our father's inheritance. After hearing everything, grandmother told us, "You don't need to give up on life because of your mother. I'll get that money back for you. You two need to live your lives with gratitude." We took the bag of money our father left us and returned to our apartment. With this money, I could let my brother go to college as much as he wanted. In addition, our grandmother even promised to pay for my college tuition. Thanks to our father and grandmother, my once abandoned hope of attending college was fulfilled. "I'm so happy for you," my younger brother said, giving me a warm smile. He too must have been holding up for a long time. "Sam, it's thanks to you sticking with me that we got through this." "Thank you," I said, and he shyly sniffled. A few days later, grandmother visited our apartment, returning the banking card Mom had taken from us. She had used one of her employees to locate Mom and get our card back. Indeed, quite the gangster. Thinking about it was a little scary, but amusing at the same time. "I made that woman promise she won't bother you two ever again. You can live in peace now," grandmother said. "Thank you, grandmother." "But how?" I asked. "That's not something children need to worry about. From now on, live your lives to the fullest," she said before leaving, giving us those encouraging words. There's a postscript to the story. Mom's lover. Actually, he was after Mom's money. When grandmother took back the bank card, he promptly dumped Mom. Having exhausted our father's inheritance, Mom is now desperately searching for a job. A woman who has been a housewife all her life from now on will undoubtedly be challenging. However, thanks to my grandmother, peace returned to our lives. I passed the entrance exams for my first choice university and am still working part-time, trying to avoid using our father's money as much as possible. I later entered the workforce and my brother started college. Now that we've reached this point, we're safe. Childhood was long and tough, but there were kind adults watching over us. Our father's lawyer, the couple who rented us the apartment, our gangster grandmother, and our beloved father. Dad, we're off. Every morning, my brother and I pay respects to our father's portrait. We'll keep supporting each other, so please watch over us from heaven, Dad. Somehow, it felt like Dad's portrait was smiling. Don't you dare come back if you can't even do basic housework. My mother-in-law spat at me and raged while I was hospitalized due to a broken leg. The irony was that she was the cause of my injury, yet instead of apologizing, she was trying to throw me out of the house. Pushed to my limits, I smiled and responded, "Oh, I'd be delighted to do that, ma'am." A few days later, my husband confronted her. "Do you have any idea, Mom? Did you not know about Emily?" Upon hearing the truth revealed by my husband, my mother-in-law turned as pale as a ghost. "My name is Emily Johnson. 3 years ago, I married Alex, whom I met through a mutual acquaintance. Alex's family runs a diner managed primarily by his mother. His father passed away early, and his mother single-handedly raised him, which I'm sure was a tough journey. Initially, I deeply respected my mother-in-law, but that didn't last long. Even after getting married, because Alex wanted me to continue working, I didn't quit my job. Alex, as the second-generation owner of the diner, was running the business alongside his mother. However, my mother-in-law disliked that I didn't help around their house. A woman who doesn't even help with house chores, even if you're working outside, we all know a woman's salary isn't much. She'd grumble every day. Soon, her constant complaining escalated to harassment. "You don't do chores at all," she'd complain, and when I managed to squeeze in some time for house chores, she'd criticize, "You're not doing it properly at all. Do you even care?" Even though I thought I was doing a decent job, it was never good enough for her. She'd berate me, calling me a useless wife who can't do housework, and at times she would lecture me for hours. Her harassment intensified, and my stress kept building up. When I tried talking to Alex about it, he said, "It's between you two, right? Don't drag me into this, staying out of it." Then one day, an incident broke out. The diner was closed that day, and my mother-in-law left early in the morning to go somewhere. As evening came, I received a sudden call demanding me to come and get her. The call ended abruptly before I could even refuse, leaving me with no choice but to reluctantly head to the train station. When I finally reached the station, she did nothing but complain all the way home, accusing me of being late and complaining about the heating system. It was nothing new, so I just nodded and shrugged it off. But I guess that got on her nerves. What kind of attitude is that? Don't you think it's disrespectful to your mother-in-law? In a fit of rage, she raised her hand against me even though I was driving. "Ouch, stop it, I'm driving, you know." "Quiet, don't you dare talk back to me." My pleas fell on deaf ears as she was blinded by anger. Not satisfied with her slaps, she tried to kick me hard, but her foot hit the steering wheel. The next thing I knew, I was in a hospital bed. "Where am I?" I asked the nurse who was changing my IV drip. Apparently, I had been brought to the hospital after a car accident. I had broken my right leg and suffered cuts and bruises all over my body. "How's my mother-in-law?" "She's only got some scratches. There were no other injured persons." The nurse's words relieved me a bit. However, when my mother-in-law came to my room, she started yelling, "It's all your fault that I got injured. You need to pay me compensation." She screeched at me the moment she saw me. "Where did you get injured?" I asked. "Right here," she said, rolling up her sleeve to reveal a small piece of gauze. On the other hand, I was confined to my bed, unable to even get up. The accident was her fault. Out of nowhere, she lost her temper and hit me while I was driving, leading to the wreck. But there wasn't a single word of apology from her. Far from it. On top of being good for nothing, you want to be a nuisance to your own mother-in-law. You're nothing but a god of pestilence. I never liked you from the start. Don't you dare come back if you can't even do basic housework. The moment I heard those words, I felt something snap inside me. "Oh, I'd be delighted to do that, ma'am." The words slipped from my mouth before I even knew it. My mother-in-law just stood there with a stunned look on her face. "I won't be returning to your house. I'm going to divorce Alex." "Thank you for everything until now," I said, bowing slightly. My mother-in-law was jolted back to reality. "Oh, how unusual for you to listen for once. Yes, just as you say, I'm useless and worthless." "I don't belong in your house," I said, pretending to be downcast. My mother-in-law left the hospital room saying, "Oh, I see," unable to say anything further. Even after that, my mother-in-law kept coming to my hospital room and complaining, "You'll end up on the streets if you can't come back to our house. It'll be too late to regret it then." Yes, you're right. It would have been better if you had done this sooner. You're absolutely right. Are you listening? While my mother-in-law kept complaining, I was casually ignoring her and sitting on my phone. This happened several times. A week after I was admitted to the hospital, my mother-in-law came to my room to complain as usual. Just as I was ignoring her as usual, my pale-faced husband Alex burst in. "Oh, it's unusual for you to visit. What changed your mind?" "What on earth is this?" Alex asked, holding a divorce paper with my details already filled in. "Oh, Dad, I asked my family to mail it." "I'm glad it arrived just fine," I replied. "Why all of a sudden?" Alex asked. I relayed to my husband what my mother-in-law had told me. And to think, Mom, did you not know Emily earns way more than I do? My husband turned pale as he asked this in a shaky voice. Yes, I've been working for a large corporation since before we got married. I've diligently worked and achieved decent results, I explained. So I hold a fairly high position now. My salary reflects the toughness of the job and is, as my husband put it, quite substantial. But she doesn't look like she earns that much, does she? She always wears the same sort of clothes. My mother-in-law interjected. That's because Emily has been spending her money on our diner, Alex explained. This was true. The diner my mother-in-law runs was on the brink of bankruptcy. It was in a tight spot when my husband took it over, as my mother-in-law had no business acumen. My husband was trying to turn it around, and I've been using my salary to keep the diner afloat and have given a lot of advice about its management. We managed to escape the worst situation, but without my salary, the diner would probably go out of business soon. No, it can't be true. There's no way that useless woman could do such a thing, my mother-in-law said, flustered and unable to believe what she was hearing. I showed her my phone, which I had been using until just a moment ago. What is this? It's the data recording of your diner's performance, and this here is my pay stub. My workplace has digitized our pay slips. My mother-in-law stared at my phone and slowly turned pale. No, that can't be. Also, I should mention that I've already consulted with the police about the accident you caused. What? My mother-in-law's expression was utterly shocked. I sighed in exasperation. Since an accident occurred, of course the police will conduct an inquiry, right? So I've reported everything exactly as it happened to the police. I've also submitted the dash cam footage. Why would you do that? From your reaction, it seems you're aware you caused the accident, aren't you? There's a chance you could be held criminally liable, but if you admit it, you might get off with a lighter sentence. After a while, my mother-in-law started trembling, and then, to my surprise, she knelt before me. I'm sorry. I had no idea we were living off your money. I'm sorry about the accident, too. I'm reflecting on my actions. Please forgive me. My mother-in-law's sudden change in attitude was astonishing. Until now, she never uttered an apology. Is it that easy to say sorry if it means she gets off the hook? I thought, feeling more disgusted than angry. Emily, Mom's really sorry. You'll forgive her, right? Alex said, near tears, as he laid his hand on my mother-in-law's back. She looked up at him with tearful eyes, and he nodded back reassuringly. Watching them trying to garner sympathy, I felt nothing but cold resolve. What are you saying? I will never forgive you guys, I stated firmly. Huh? Alex looked taken aback. Isn't it obvious? Actually, I intended to divorce you even before this mess with your mom. Even when I was seriously injured and hospitalized, you never visited me. You spent my salary without a shred of gratitude. I've been fed up with you for a while now. What? Alex's face fell. There's no benefit for me in staying married to you. In fact, you're only bringing me down. That's why I'm divorcing you. I smiled brightly in stark contrast to Alex and my mother-in-law, whose faces were filled with despair. There was some fuss afterward with Alex throwing a tantrum, but once I mentioned getting a lawyer involved, he quickly signed the divorce papers. He should have just signed them without making such a fuss. I thought I couldn't be more disappointed in him, but the regret of marrying him cut deep. Once they lost my support, their family diner quickly faced operational issues. It shut down in no time, leaving Alex and my mother-in-law in a poor state. My mother-in-law had said she would be left out on the streets, and that's exactly what happened. But it seems they were the ones in that predicament. They sold off the diner for peanuts and moved to a rundown apartment. Having no work experience outside the diner, they could only find low-paying jobs, barely making ends meet. By the way, it turned out that my mother-in-law had lied about losing her husband at a young age. She was quite a player, and her fed-up husband had filed for divorce and left her. Even on the day of the accident, she was out gallivanting with a man. I found out these details from a police officer who was investigating the accident. I have nothing but gratitude for the police who kept up the investigation. My mother-in-law will probably be charged with some crime at some point. Already living a miserable life, if they end up in police custody, they would surely face ruin. Perhaps sensing this, I received a plea for reconciliation from my ex-husband after our divorce. If you continue to bother me, I'll have the cops come for you and your mother, I threatened him. He never showed up in front of me again. The divorce went through smoothly and I cut ties with my in-laws. My broken bone healed after treatment. Currently, I'm working hard while still recovering from my injury. I had been using my salary for my in-laws' diner before, so I had almost no money left for myself. But it's different now. Working for myself and being able to spend money only on myself, I had no idea how much happiness this would bring. I'm thinking of valuing myself more, and if I can find a partner who values me, I'm considering getting remarried. What's with this awful food? Don't stress out a pregnant woman, my son's wife yelled at me. Then, to my surprise, my usually mild-mannered and kind husband suddenly stood up and took away the meal. Never come back here again, he commanded. Excuse me? My son's wife froze on the spot. Too bad, Lily. Olivia, what do you mean? I looked down on my son's wife from above. A person who can't cherish their family is not fit to be my son's wife. My son's wife, usually so full of confidence, now had an unusually troubled look on her face. This was the end. My name is Olivia, and I'm 70 years old. This year marks the 40th anniversary of my marriage to my husband, Nicholas. Time flies faster than one would think. We met as classmates in college. He was always calm and gentle, and I was attracted to him from the start. But in our time, arranged marriages were the norm. Only a few could be with the one they loved, so I kept my feelings for him a secret. I thought it would be a bother if he knew, but by the second half of our college life, rumors somehow spread that I liked him. I quickly realized it was because I had confided in a classmate. What would I do if he found out? Not long after, my husband called me. Will you go out with me? For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. I never imagined the kind-hearted Nicholas, who was nice to everyone, would notice me. Besides, I thought he'd be arranged to meet some lovely young lady, but it was all a misunderstanding. I won't have an arranged marriage. I want to be with you, Olivia. His words marked the beginning of our relationship. Even as a couple, he treated me just as he did when we were friends. He was so thoughtful that he even gifted me trips on my birthdays. Was I really worthy of this much happiness? I was grateful to the classmate who shared my feelings. For the first time, I realized how wonderful it was to be with someone who reciprocated my love. We got married when we both turned 30. Our wedding was attended by all our college friends. Being blessed by everyone, I felt like the happiest person in the world. Our marriage continued smoothly and our son, William, was born. He was our only child and my husband, and I raised him with all our love. I wanted him to grow up to be as kind as his father. Eventually, William grew up just as I had hoped, becoming a gentle and considerate man, kind to everyone. Even as an adult and working professional, he continued living at home. At that time, most of his peers were living independently, which made me worry about his future. I hoped he would marry and have a happy family, but I wondered if he felt the same. Of course, if he preferred staying with us, that was fine too. I knew we had to respect his decisions. My husband, ever so kind, chose to watch and wait. It's William's choice, he said, not interfering much. William continued to live with us until he turned 40. He was serious about his work. On his days off, he prioritized family and always took care of us. Maybe it's fine to stay together as a family, I began to think. Just the three of us living peacefully might be enough. But then my son made an announcement. I'm getting married. We were surprised by his sudden news. Congratulations. Thanks, Dad and Mom. I'll work hard to build a family like yours. Be happy, we told him. I wondered what kind of person my son's wife would be. I looked forward to meeting her. Her parents would also be there at the introduction. Finally, the day arrived. Nice to meet you. My son's wife's name was Lily. She was tall and had a cool demeanor. The in-laws, on the other hand, were both smiling and seemed kind. We're looking forward to being a family. They greeted us with a smile, making us smile too. I thought we could get along well with them. That's when it happened. William's parents are like grandparents, huh? My son's wife suddenly interjected. What are you saying? The in-laws scolded my son's wife. Well, I just thought they'd be younger. Y'all are old too. Initially, it seemed the in-laws were older than us. Isn't that an inappropriate way to talk to parents who raised you? I struggled to contain my anger. My son and his wife decided to live together in an apartment. For the first time, I felt a sense of loneliness being apart from my son. But this is the happiness my son, now over 40, has finally found. I decided to quietly watch over him, or so I thought. However, our peaceful life was soon to be disrupted. First, my husband seemed to take a liking to my son's wife. I was surprised he could like someone who spoke to us like that at our first meeting. When I asked him about it, he said, "It's better to have someone who speaks their mind clearly." I felt a bit bad recalling how timid I was when we first met. I even wondered if he actually preferred someone assertive like my son's wife. But since they lived apart, I thought we wouldn't have to interact much. Hopefully, they could live peacefully. We, a couple in our 70s, didn't have time to worry in the remaining years of our lives. Though my son left home after getting married, he surprisingly returned home frequently. Initially, it was once a week, then gradually increasing to 2 or 3 times. At first, I was happy as only my son returned. He would bring food and even help clean the house. Despite being busy with his own home, he cared for us, which was heartwarming. I was happy to have such a good son. But then, one day, his wife started coming with him. "She's family now, so I want Lily to get along with you, Mom and Dad," he explained. It seemed my son was considering us and his wife. My husband, who initially liked her, was pleased, but for me, it was somewhat annoying. I couldn't change my first impression of her disdainful attitude. My husband didn't seem to mind, but it always bothered me. My son was trying to connect us, and I didn't want to dwell on it forever. Perhaps she might be a nice person after all. I waited for them that day. "We're home," my son said as they arrived. But what his wife said next shocked me. It's dirty." Was she talking about the entrance? I was sure I cleaned thoroughly. Was there something dirty? "What's wrong?" I asked as I went to check. "William's house is always dirty, isn't it? Maybe because y'all are so old," she remarked. It was clearly a jab at me. Our house is old indeed. It's the house we built right after we got married, over 40 years ago. It's true that it has become older and dirtier over the years, but is it appropriate for her, my daughter-in-law, to say that to me? When I got married, I treated my mother-in-law as my own parent. Without her, my husband wouldn't have been born, and we wouldn't have met. Plus, she was very kind, like my husband. I quickly realized that it was her upbringing that shaped my husband, so I respected her. But what about my son's wife? She doesn't treat me with the respect due to a mother-in-law and talks to me as if I'm a friend. I often hear that wives should be like friends nowadays, but something is different with her. She fundamentally lacks manners. It's rude to talk about age to someone you've just met, and she's too assertive towards us. "Your house is like a haunted house, huh?" she continued. "Well, it's an old house," my son responded to his wife with a smile. He seemed unaware that he was being ridiculed. In crucial aspects, my son grew up to be oblivious. This might lead him to be completely under his wife's thumb. My fears were becoming a reality. "Could you get some coffee?" she demanded. "I'll prepare it right now," I replied. This is terrible," she said after tasting it. "I'll get you another one," I offered. My son's wife thoroughly bossed me around. She acted as if it were her own home, not her in-laws. I appealed to my husband with my eyes, but he didn't even glance my way. My son's wife complained about the coffee I served. Did I replace it 5 times? Not wanting to waste the coffee, I secretly transferred the replaced coffee into another container. Finally, my son's wife seemed satisfied but didn't say a single word of thanks. Am I just a servant? Despite being treated like this, my son and husband didn't even try to help. Both were enamored by my son's wife. It was frustrating how they both seemed to like similar types of people. Even if she were my age, she's definitely not the type I'd want to be friends with. "We're going back to clean our house now," she said after complaining for a while. My son's wife finally left with my son. I was genuinely relieved they had gone. After they left, I thoroughly disinfected the cups and plates she used. I instinctively felt repulsed by my son's wife. I know I should get along with her since she's my son's wife, but instinctively, I don't want anything to do with her. I can't discuss this with my son or husband since they both like her, so I discreetly disinfect everything she's touched to ease my mind. That was the only way I could vent. My son and his wife continued to visit 2 or 3 times a week. Despite having a beautiful apartment, they mostly spent time at our house. Today, she talked about her family. I'm the middle of 3 sisters, sick of parents who only doted on my elder and younger sister. Most of her talk was complaints. Her elder and younger sisters went to good universities, But she, being the middle child, only graduated from a local junior college. She always seemed dissatisfied with her parents favoring her siblings, but I think they loved Lily too. My son tried to reassure her. I agree with him. If her parents didn't care for her, they wouldn't have smiled so warmly at our first meeting. When I shared this with her, she suddenly got angry. I didn't ask for your opinion. Can you just be quiet? She snapped. I intended to be thoughtful, but it only made her more uncomfortable. I really felt like nothing more than a servant, and being called you was particularly shocking. I realized she never called me Olivia since marrying my son. The thought of being just you to her felt empty. After venting her frustrations, she seemed satisfied and left. Then I meticulously cleaned the chair she had sat in. As I polished the chair, tears started to fall from my eyes. Why do I have to endure this? What about me does my son's wife dislike? It's not just me. She behaves the same way towards my husband and son and even her own parents. Does she have anyone she can open her heart to? I started to feel sorry for her, but remembering what she does, I couldn't help but be angry. I honestly didn't want to associate with a wife who treated our family like servants and called us you. However, the frequency of their visits increased, and they eventually spent every weekend at our house. No matter how badly my son's wife behaved, my son and husband just laughed it off. Like my husband, my son grew to be oblivious. Their kindness is great, but it can be exploited by the wrong people. For the first time, I was angry at my son and my husband. One day, we received news that my son's wife was pregnant. Though it should have been happy news, I had mixed feelings. We need to go shopping for clothes. Yes, what would be a good gift? My husband was overjoyed about the arrival of his first grandchild. Every time we went shopping, he would stop at the baby section to buy something. Thinking of it as my son's wife's child, I couldn't genuinely feel happy. I always worried if the child would grow up to be mean and domineering. I couldn't voice such thoughts, so I silently accompanied my husband on his gift selections. I continued to treat my son and his wife with the utmost hospitality when they visited. I just wish they could be a bit quieter. It's not a party hall. I felt increasing irritation towards my still domineering son's wife and my inability to be genuinely happy about the grandchild. Then an incident occurred. Olivia suddenly came to our house to give birth. Of course, I hadn't heard anything about this. My son was carrying a lot of his wife's luggage. Pregnant women need to eat nutritious food. In the sudden turn of events, I prepared a meal using what I had. It turned out delicious. I then took it to my son's wife. She still had a stern expression. As she tasted the food, she spat it out immediately. What's this awful food? Don't stress out a pregnant woman. I didn't mean to. I was shocked to be spoken to like that. Even though my cooking didn't suit her taste, I had tried my best considering she was close to giving birth. But then an unexpected person appeared. My usually gentle and kind husband suddenly stood up and took away the dishes. What happened? I was surprised by my husband's sudden action. He looked coldly at my son's wife and said, "Never come back here." My son's wife was stunned. She probably never expected to be spoken to like that. My husband had always been very kind to her. She must have completely trusted that he was on her side. You mean me? Never come back? She timidly asked my husband. That's right. I won't tolerate anyone who looks down on my wife. What? My son's wife was defiant. You're on my side, right? She addressed my husband as you as well. I was utterly disgusted by her attitude. Enough already. I yelled, and then the doorbell rang. Who could it be at this time? It turned out to be my son's wife's parents. We're sorry for the sudden visit. Her in-laws had come unexpectedly. They looked dismayed. So you were here. Why are you here? My son's wife was still defiant. We came to take you back. What? I explained everything to the in-laws. Surprisingly, they didn't even know about the pregnancy. We're sorry, she hasn't contacted us since the marriage. She hadn't reached out to them even once after getting married. They must have been quite upset. Her parents seemed regretful, admitting they might have favored the other sisters. It's true we may have paid more attention to her sisters. That's exactly what my son's wife had said. I had heard that middle children sometimes become twisted or strong-willed, but I didn't expect it to be this extreme. Her in-laws then said to me, "We want to take responsibility as her parents. They seemed like such kind and considerate people. It was a shame." Why did you tell them everything? My son's wife looked at me coldly. I used to think her sharp eyes were cool, but now they seemed only to look down on others. You need to leave this house, I said to her. What are you talking about? I'm the wife of this house. She objected as expected, but I couldn't back down if I wanted to get rid of her. What do you mean? That's when the in-laws produced something. At first, I was confused, but then I realized it was a listening device. They played it, and it was a recording from inside their apartment. All that family is so useless, completely under my control. How stupid, the voice of my son's wife said, talking to a friend on the phone. Well, after the baby's born, I can use that as a reason to divorce and claim alimony. Any reason will do with those people. My husband and son were at a loss for words. I was speechless too. I couldn't believe she had been mocking our family like this. Her parents were silent as well. You really underestimated our family. I looked down on my son's wife as she crumbled. Too bad, Lily. Olivia, what do you mean? She didn't seem to realize what she had done. A person who can't cherish their family doesn't belong in ours. Until now, my son's wife had been bruni with confidence, but now her complexion was the worst I'd ever seen. This is the end, Lily. Let's go, said her father, who had been so cheerful when we first met, now had a demonic expression. Why do I have to leave? My son's wife was visibly shaken, hearing what was on that listening device. I'm at a loss for words. I never thought she was this kind of person. We're going home now, her father said. Wait, I'm already married. She resisted and didn't move. I was angered by her attitude. Don't you even appreciate being raised? I understand that you felt lonely because your parents paid more attention to your elder and younger sisters. I slammed the table. But they still came to see you. They've always been worried about you. My son's wife moved as if surprised. You repay kindness with ingratitude. Don't just hold grudges, make some effort yourself. She had always been a self-centered queen, never making any effort. Perhaps she was too caught up in her childhood memories to see the current situation. Please forgive me, Olivia, my son's wife apologized again, but it was too late. I never thought I had such a wife. Get out, my husband was also angry. The in-laws pulled away their crying daughter and left the house. Don't ever come near my family again. I screamed louder than I ever had before. Finally, the battle was over. After screaming, I collapsed to the ground, exhausted. It might have been the accumulation of all the fatigue, but my heart felt clear. My son and his wife eventually divorced after discussions with the in-laws. My son took custody of the child. It would be a pity for the child to be raised by her. My first grandchild resembled my son, and I was very relieved. The smile the child sometimes showed was just like my son's. My husband and son apologized to me later. They were initially shocked by her escalating behavior and lacked the courage to fight back, afraid of her retaliation. So they took it out on me. Don't get involved with strange people again, I said. They looked guilty but later laughed, perhaps realizing they had indeed been caught up with a strange person. Oh, my sweet grandchild, my kind husband and son. Now we're living peacefully as a family of 4. I've come to realize again how much I love spending time with my family. I want to enjoy today peacefully, looking forward to my grandchild's growth.